and Indian elephants. And the African elephant has got much larger ears than the Indian. I think the temperature is pretty much the same in India and here, but the big difference is that the Indian elephant spends most of its time in the shade. They spend their time in jungle, in the forests, and so they don't have direct sun on them in the same way that African elephants do. And I think that's why the African elephant has that much bigger ear, because it obviously helps to cool the blood going to the brain, which is crucial out here if you're not standing in the shade. On that note, we're going to head across to the Birmingham boys, who also found the heat rather a bit much today, and I'll see you a little bit later.
Oh, what a beautiful sunset we're experiencing here. Some beautiful clouds, but not only that, some beautiful big male lions. And thankfully you haven't missed out too much since you've been away from us. And these guys, as you can see, are fast asleep. They're scattered about, and we will show you all four of them that we can see eventually. We're just going to let Jean-Andre take you on a little bit of a tour. And fear not, what we need to do is put on our patient pants and wait for them to start showing some signs of movements. And I am very confident that there's a strong chance that they are going to roar for us. I've never heard all five of them roaring from a close proximity, and I cannot wait. I think tonight is going to be a first for me, and possibly a first for a lot of you. It is one of the most awesome things that you can experience on safari, and if I could choose one thing, just one thing, that I could guarantee to show my guests on a safari, it would be this, male lions roaring. So I hope I'm not hyping it up too much, but they have. Moment this morning we heard them roaring, and that's what helped us to get onto their tracks that took us on a wild chase through Djuma, but eventually James did a great job in finding them. But the bottom line is they are calling a lot at the moment, and the reason for their high vocal communication at the moment is because of the fact that they are in the process of trying to take over this territory from two bigger and older males. I just heard a rustle over to my side here, and we've got good news. Oh, look at that big yawn. Jean-Andre had to scoot you in at high speed there to try and capture that. And he's also just changed what is called an ND filter, and as the light begins to fade, he has to alter a few settings. Not that that's a glitch, but it is a little technical thing that you would not be used to seeing if you've only watched wildlife documentaries. Get ready for the screenshots. I'm going to get ready with my camera, because there's a strong chance he will continue to yawn. Thinking about it, is that a sneeze coming? I think that could be a sneeze on the way. Beautiful. What have you got in your mouth? Is it a piece of hair? Something that he's not happy with. I'm not too sure exactly what. And talking of pride takeovers or coalition takeovers, we just got a question through from Pretty Nightmare. And she's heard that in these times of conflict, if one coalition does the dirty to another, the battle may come back to seek revenge. And that's entirely correct. The Matimba males, who are the two dominant males, who are larger than these individuals but not as numerous, are certainly not going to give up without a fight. And it's quite often in these scenarios that male lions can kill one another or wound one another fatally. And it usually doesn't just happen instantaneously. A lot of the initial debates and arguments will simply be vocal, but eventually something will give and a physical confrontation will unfold. So you're entirely correct, Pretty Nightmare. And who knows, we could be lucky enough to witness the spectacle. It's something that I've never seen, and it'll be an incredible show of power and strength between these incredible predators. It won't be easy to view, and I certainly won't be taking sides, and it's important for us to always remember that what goes on here is natural, and even though it can often be quite harsh and difficult to understand and witness, we are merely spectators, and it's up to these animals to sort out their own conflicts and debates. Speaking of conflict, though, it's incredible how affectionate and caring they can be towards one another, the same coalition members. And these guys would have grown up together. They of slightly, ever so slightly different ages. That's the biggest, another three which are in between, and one that's slightly smaller. It's difficult to tell them apart, and even as they lie here, it's difficult to tell who's who. I'm still getting to know them again. I got to see them quite a lot over November, December, January, February, and then from about February, March, they started moving further north into the property called Buffelshoek to the north of us, and then even much further north into the Manuleti, where they spent a lot of time. So I'm still getting to know them again, and a lot of you will also be getting to know them, and I look forward to hearing your different ways of identifying these animals. Let's maybe take a closer look at the sunset. It's beginning to dip below the horizon, and it's lighting up some clouds quite beautifully. And while you take a look at that, I'm just going to be on the radio to Craig. He would like an update on what's going on here. You all know what Jonde just did now. He just changed the ND filter again. Craig, just myself here. They are still stationary. Same place. Beautiful, peaceful evening. Not too much bird song yet, but it could pick up a little bit later. I'm interested to see where these lions head. Possibly for a drink somewhere around the waterhole. I haven't seen any buffalo in the immediate area, and that is their ultimate prey. They're not exceptionally hungry at the moment, but like most predators, any opportunity to cash in on an and that would be another wonderful spectacle to behold in terms of their strength and power, not fighting with other males, but bringing down one of their dangerous and biggest quarries. I think they are seasoned veterans now at doing this, and especially at this time of the year, as the buffalo are quite weak due to not too much food being around, the going is good for them. Now, something else that we will be seeing if and when these 5 brothers do become dominant over this area is them mating. And it's, like I say, still probably going to be a while before the dust settles. There's a lot of turmoil and rage at the moment, and as they come into this area, they are initially actually going to aggravate the prides of lioness and kill some of them along the way, especially those lioness with cubs who they are trying to defend. And oh, one's just rolling over there. And Valerie's just sent through a question all the way from Ontario. Will only certain individuals of this coalition mate? And it's a great question, Valerie, because even though they're very affectionate and parts of the same team, when it comes to ladies, it's the biggest and the strongest out of these 5 that will be the lucky one. And they will fight amongst one another. Not to the death, but they will every now and then need to re-establish who is dominance, and dominance will change. The biggest male could get injured or lose condition, and then the second in charge will decide that, hey, it's my turn to step up now, and maybe I can oust him in terms of mating, and that will happen. And what can also sometimes happen is, because 5 males banded together like this can acquire such a large territory, what they will need to do is actually split up into different groups, one of 2 and one of 3, and that way they can more effectively patrol their very large territory, making sure that no nomads and intruders are sneaking in. Females in season go undetected. And therefore we may have 2 different groups of the same coalition mating at any given time, and therefore 2 of them will mate. Now, that leads to another important discussion, and an interesting one, and that is, how will these males know that once they have split up, it is actually indeed their coalition partners who have fathered cubs from their surrounding prides? And that we do not know the answer to that question, but it is important that they do know, because if they are not sure of who has fathered certain cubs, there will be no cubs here for the next 5 to 8 years that they could be dominants. So that's just an interesting thing that male coalitions do understand, and we're not exactly sure how do they know that one of their partners in crime have mated and fathered cubs when they were nowhere to be seen. So there's 4 individuals that you've seen in front of us now, and I did touch on it briefly a little bit earlier that the 5th individual can't be seen, but as you can see there's a small road, or a little road behind the individual that's lying down, and the other 5th member is just on the other side of the road behind some bushes, basically just to the left of the fallen down tree that you can see over there. And Jandre is going to be able to give you a faint blur of that line. So that's where the 5th one is. You can see its paw up in the sky. Well, earlier on I did say that the 2 dominant males currently dominant over this area, the 2 Matimba males, are bigger than all 5 of these individuals. And Mischian in Dallas is interested to know, how much bigger and how much do I think these animals weigh? It's a great question that I would love to be able to give you solid answers to, Mischian, but it's a very tricky one, because I've never actually seen a male lion being weighed and therefore had one reference to work off. We can only work off the averages in books, and also the speculations of other guides in this area. Now, chatting with some other guides, They believe that the Matimbas are very, very big, and I agree with them. They are two incredibly big males. Consider that the Matimbas have got 30 kilograms on these guys, which is about 60 pounds. And if I was to take a flying guess, I would say that the individuals that we're all looking at now roughly weigh about 150 to 160 kilograms, and the Matimbas closer to 190 or 200. But like I say, sadly, unless we were to weigh these animals, the weights of lion across Africa will vary greatly on the individual area and amongst the individual lion. Okay, folks, well, as the lions are still all very much fast asleep, we are going to rush you over to James, who has found a beautiful, beautiful piece of Djuma that he would like to share with you. I wish I was coming along to enjoy, but we're going to stay here with the lion, and we'll see you all shortly.
Hello everybody, welcome to this absolutely magnificent scene here at Buffelshoek Dam. In the foreground, the water of the rapidly shrinking waterhole, and of course in the background the magnificent African sun just about to set. And you can see as Viam changes the exposure, you can see the crepuscular rays sprawled out, starting off crimson and turning into a sort of creamed honey and lemon as they explode over the top of our heads. And those crepuscular rays, of course, are formed by the sun shining through the clouds at the angle that it is. So you wouldn't see them during the day necessarily, but they would be there, just not shining in an obvious fashion like they are now. Isn't that just the most wonderful scene? So I believe you were chatting about revenge and in lions, and William, you wanted to know if I thought maybe the orange-eyed lioness of the Nkahuma pride had put a hit out on me. William, that does rather presume that I'd done something nasty to her and therefore she was seeking revenge. So thankfully I don't believe that I have irritated her that much. I feel we have a bond, an understanding of pleasantness between us, and so I don't think revenge is necessary. Thank you, William, for pointing that out. I take revenge, I'm sure that's what Scott said. Certainly animals do have memories though, and especially elephants. If you were to sort of, in an area where elephants have been harassed by people, they will absolutely remember that and have an experience of people that might not cause them to take revenge, but would certainly cause them to act in a manner that is, shall we say, less than friendly. Let's just go back to the sun. It's not too long before it actually dips down below. You can just see, I believe Scott said he thought that was a female hippo in here the other day. I'm not prepared to say either way at this stage, but we'll just modify Bob's name to Bobette if we eventually discover for certain that that is a female hippo. I think it's a male, probably because of the injuries on the back, which you won't be able to see from here. All right, so Scott is also, I think, looking at the sunset while he looks at the beautiful coalition of male lions that is the Birmingham Bboys, causing a huge amount of issue. And I'm sure their coats are shining gold in this wonderful light. And I mean, it is that we're in the height of the dry season now. I think it's going to get a lot drier in the next 30 to 60. I don't believe it's going to rain till November. And Rhonda in Kentucky, you say, will the Djuma waterhole ever fill up? Rhonda, you will not believe the change that will take place here when the rains eventually come. This dam wall, in a year of good rains, would be almost covered to overflowing with water. I know that's almost impossible to imagine. And the Djuma dam, indeed, I've seen pictures of it flowing into the overflows on both sides of the dam. Yeah, you can't believe how much water can be collected in this area. And so please keep watching. The other thing, of course, that you will notice as we watch that sun disappearing beautifully over the grey, sort of dry season vegetation, that will turn bright green, 100 different colors of green. The grass and the leaves will produce, especially come January. So November, the leaves will be on the trees, and then when we get the rain, the grass will turn green and start to grow, and come December, you just won't believe that we're looking at the same scene. The sun, of course, will also be setting much further to the left of your screen. That's to the south. And I'm just going to be very quiet now for the next little while we watch that sun sink and just have a listen to the wonderful sounds of the evening. It's just my favorite time of the day. You can hear some green spotted doves or emerald spotted wood doves. Toot, 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 toot. You can hear the francolins calling, crested barbet, some starlings, ring-necked doves. The air is beautifully fresh. There is a hint of knobthorn flower on the air. Gentle breeze from the northeast. And the rather massive heat of the day is starting to dissipate, along with that unbelievable crimson pink ball of exploding hydrogen nuclear fission reactions that provides us with the life, or provides us with the energy for life on our wonderful planet. And I hope Becky and others, I know that you've all been talking about coming out here, your experiences out here and your intentions to come out here. I hope that when you do come out here, you will be able to sit in complete silence and just absorb the atmosphere, the energy, and the amazing healing power of a quintessential African evening like the one we're having right now. Wasn't that just absolutely fantastic? All right, we're going to enjoy that sky a bit further, Liam and I, and while we're doing that, I'm going to send you back across to Scott so that you can look at the magnificent sky and a magnificent coalition of 5 golden male lions. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and I have no doubt that you enjoyed your time with James. The sitting and waiting continues, but slowly the lions are beginning to stretch out their legs and their toes and their paws, and these are all very good signs. Just like us as humans, it's sometimes not too easy to wake up and jump straight out of bed and be in full swing. And lions are no different. They will very gradually get up Well, I'm not sure what the rest of you guys think in terms of when these guys might wake up, but Lynn way earlier on in the drive mentioned that her prediction is they'll get up 10 minutes before the end of drive, and judging from past experiences with the lion of this area, Lynn, you're probably not far off. Although I'm optimistic, and we should start seeing considerable changes in their behavior, and by the end of the safari they would have vocalized 3 times. So that's what you have to look forward to in terms of my predictions. And Lynn, as much as I think you could be correct, I hope you are wrong about them only getting up 10 minutes before the end. Now, a big contributing factor to these lions becoming active will be the cooling temperature. And earlier on when the drive started, it was 31 degrees Celsius, 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's dropped considerably to now 26 degrees Celsius, which is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Very pleasant evening in terms of temperature. Jean-Andre did, and they are now rolled back down, so he's not as hot as he was. Well, very happy to hear that Donna is feeling optimistic, and she's been keeping a close eye on the bellies of these lions, and she's noticed that they're fairly flat and therefore may be more inclined to be hunting this evening. And I think you spot on, Donna. Although I must mention, when a lion's stomach is how we can see it now, it's kind of perfectly flat, it's not indented. That means they are content, they are comfortably fed, they are not gorged, and they're certainly not starving. They're kind of in between. And an interesting story about these males from November, I know sequence of events. They basically killed 3 buffalo within 48 hours. They killed one night and fed on it for the day. The following night they killed another one not far away and left one behind, the initial one that they had killed, and were feeding on the second adult buffalo the following afternoon after having killed it. And another herd of buffalo stumbled upon them, and they got up. By now they're incredibly full-bellied. They'd been feeding on buffalo for 48 hours, 2 different ones, and they still managed to bring down another buffalo calf. Not a tiny calf, a kind of medium size. They'll still take any opportunities that arise, but obviously the hungrier they become, the more inclined they will be to travel bigger distances in search of prey. There doesn't seem to be too much nearby, although one of the vehicles that did pop in briefly to show their guests these beautiful lions, they did mention that there were some impala and kudu not too far away. Kudu would be decent sized prey for these boys, but because they are quite big and bulky, they tend to steer their attacks to big and bulky prey that isn't very fast and light-footed, that can escape easily. And both impala and kudu are quite nimble and agile, and it would be a very good hunt for them to manage to take one of those may find more difficult to hunt. So it's important to think about these things. Lioness are more seasoned at catching the smaller prey, and these guys certainly aim towards bigger, slower, but more dangerous prey like the Cape buffalo. All the kids that are watching alongside with you, it's great to know that you're watching again, and it always puts a smile on my face. Now, there's been a lot of interesting behavior with these male lions, and we are not entirely sure as to what the exact reason is for this behavior. But basically what's been happening is that the males, these males, have killed up to date 3 different lionesses. And usually for males, they would compete with the other males so that there's no competition for them and that they can have all the different prides of females. But in the process of them coming into this area and trying to win over these ladies, sometimes the ladies or the lioness will put up a fight. And I think the reason for me is that don't know, you're naturally not going to be very welcoming, and you're not going to allow them into your house to help themselves to your fridge and to your food, and you certainly aren't going to want them to kill your kids, which you've had with other males. So I think that's the reason. When these newcomers come in, they're strangers to the lioness, they don't have anything to really offer to the lioness, and that's why the lioness put up a fight against them. And sadly, because they are so much bigger than the lioness, who are often trying to defend their cubs from them, the lioness will get killed. And it's not the first time, it's not unique to these lions, so it doesn't make them bad lions. It's normal when young coalitions like them come through with lots of energy and lots of testosterone, and they get very, very excited. Sometimes they do things that don't really make sense, and one of those is killing lioness that do try and defend their cubs. So it's nice to sometimes put ourselves as humans into the feet or the paws of the animals to understand kind of why they. But like I said, it's important for us to not dislike these animals simply because they are killing lioness. It happens throughout Africa whenever there are pride takeovers. And another important thing is not to become too attached to the little cubs, because a lot of the time, whether it's leopard cubs or lion cubs, they very often don't make it to adulthood. So it's best to try and love them as much as we can, but just remember in the back of your mind that there is a chance that when they are still small, that they are going to be killed, either by a male lion, or in the case of leopards, female leopards often lose their cubs to male leopards who are not the fathers of those cubs. Males and one Matimba male have been seen together at a place called Ingwe Mati to the south of us, and there was no sign of the little cub, the remaining young male. That's not to say that it's confirmed that he's dead, but there was no sign of him when they were seen this morning. So according to my predictions, there's 15 minutes until they start showing some signs of life. According to Lynn, it's still going to be another 35 minutes, but they are you to try and stay tuned in, because to see these males roaring is going to be a life-changing experience if it is something that you have not seen before. Now, on the topic of these males killing females as they maraud through this area, Cheryl in Illinois asks a good question, and she's interested to know whether this area that the males are killing them. And I certainly don't think that's the case. The more females there are, the more females will probably get killed through default, because they would all have possibly different cubs that they would try and defend from these males. But I really don't think it's because there's an overpopulation of females. And if anything in this area at the moment, it's quite the contrary. There's a lot of different male lions moving around. Now, I've lost track of all of them, but basically, let me try my best to run through it. There's these 5. There's the 2 Matimbas, that's 7. There's 4 Majingulanis, 11. There's 2 Styx males that are about 4.5, that's 13. There's 1 Inkohuma male, who's quite big and old now, I'm told. I've never seen him, but also flies below the radar, more in the south of the Sabi Sands. I've lost count now, but I think that's 14. And then there's 4 Toulon males to the south of the Sabi Sands, and there's also the 4-way males. I'm not sure how many of them are there. So there's a lot of buffer up to some areas that we don't quite get to. So there's a huge quantity of big male lions in the area, almost too many at the moment, and not enough females to go around. But that will all change, and there are these natural cycles, and it is normal. Oh, good news, we've got one of them that's put his head up. And yes, it's normal. Sometimes these coalition takeovers can wipe out entire prides. But once the dust settles, there will be a lot of mating and a lot of stability caused by 5 new dominant males that can actively protect and patrol their territory and the lioness and cubs within. And then we'll find a surge. And I guess it kind of does make sense, because if the prides were just continuing to grow and grow and get bigger and bigger, there wouldn't be enough food to sustain them. So I guess when these males come through and deplete numbers of prides to a degree, it helps the prey animals' populations recover for a small period of time, and then get ready for the surge in the lion population. And it will ebb and flow, just like most things in life. The immediate thing that I thought of was my bank balance, ebbing and flowing. But that is life, and even for us as humans, there's good moments and bad moments, and moments of plenty and moments of hardship. And it can't always be the good going, and you need those tough times. Not sure where all the birds are hiding, but they don't seem to be making too much noise right here. I'm not sure if the birds are calling across at Buffelshoek Waterhole with James, or if it's just something to do with the weather, or who knows what's causing them to be so still this evening. Well, thank you very much to Teresa for asking the question you did, because it brings up a very important discussion to touch on. And Teresa's asked, due to the depleting or lowering numbers of lioness in this area, which may continue, will other lioness move into the area? Most certainly. Whenever there is a void or a gap created in nature, it's often very quickly filled, and it may give that gap to a few young lioness trying to find their own territory. It may give them that gap to start up their own life here. And I'm sure it won't take long for lioness to fill the gaps if entire prides are wiped out. Or often what actually may happen is that prides do split up. And some of you may have heard of the Salala breakaway pride, also known as the Mangan pride, and that's a good example of how one pride that was together has split. Now, nobody knows why they've split or who makes the decision to split and when, but it does happen. And when a pride splits, naturally one pride will need to establish, keep one portion of the pride will keep the old core territory, and the pride that splits off will need to find a new area within which to live. So that certainly will happen, and we don't have to worry about not seeing lions. If the other lions do get killed, the gap will very quickly be filled, and it's quite simple. The lions all communicate with one another through vocalizations, through scent marks, and as soon as they realize there's a gap in the markets and there's free property with which they can go and extend their searches for hunting and extend their increase their likelihood of being able to be full-bellied and go to areas where there's always food, they're certainly going to not miss out on that opportunity, and they're going to try their best. And exciting times that certainly do lie ahead. Well, now there's a few, Franklin, that you may hear calling off in the distance. Good to see this lion stretching. Good signs that I spoke of earlier, of them slowly beginning to wake up. Well, thank you so much to all of the viewers who are sending through questions, and if we haven't answered yours, I apologize. And if you are one of the viewers who don't send questions, we're going to find out who you are and reprimand you for not getting involved. Anyway, a big thanks now to Sharon in Pittsburgh, who's sent through another question on the topic of this takeover and the interesting behavior that we're experiencing. And she would like to know why these lions have not fed on the lioness that they've killed. And in most textbooks, especially the older ones, Sharon, it was written that predators will not kill other predators that they've killed. They simply do it for competition purposes. Or in this case, it's not direct competition, it's more because of the takeover and slightly other complicated reasons of which we're not
just struggling to get. You want to know why it is it Ginny? I think it's Ginny. Cinny, C-I-N-N-Y, or perhaps Kinney. My sister had a friend called Kinney. Anyway, you would like to know why it is that spring starts here on the 1st of September and not on the 20th when your autumn starts. I don't know. I don't think there is actually an official date, to be honest. I just know that this is known as Spring Day in South Africa. So I couldn't really tell you why it's different from where you are in Ohio. I think your September is still quite pleasantly warm, isn't it, in the Northern Hemisphere? I don't think it gets cold until October, unless I'm much mistaken. Of course, by the end of September, especially if there's been no rain, we go into what's called in Botswana suicide month. And that's because it is so hot and so dry. And the clouds build, and rather like politicians promise a huge amount and then they disappear without giving us anything at all. And that will probably be the case until November. So the spotlight I will use to try and find the reflective eyes of the Tapetum lucidum. Say that when you've just woken up, Liam. Tapetum lucidum, and that's a reflective sort of film in the eye of most animals. We don't have one, so our eyes don't reflect at night, and it does help animals to see at night, nocturnal animals especially. And so you will see the flash of eyes. That's basically what we look for when we shine the spotlight like this. And the reason we don't shine on the diurnal animals is that we don't want to put them at some sort of disadvantage. The nocturnal animals are going to be awake anyway, so to disturb them a little bit with a light doesn't tend to do any harm. Ideally, of course, one day when the thermal imaging is such that we can still recreate color at night with an infrared camera or a thermal imaging camera, then that's what we'll use. But at the moment, those infrared cameras put out a sort of nauseating green color, which is not very pleasant to watch. But rest assured, we are going to go down that road one day. The other thing, and I think Scott was talking about it last night, that we will be looking for is chameleons. And you won't believe the spotting of chameleons when you do see it. It'll look to you like it's magic, when in actual fact it's pretty easy to do. Now we've got a bit of an unusual situation here in the Sabi Sands with some of the lions, and I know we've been talking about lions all day, and I think we're going to continue to talk about them probably for the next few weeks. Mauricia, you want to know if a breakaway pride joins up with its sort of original pride members, will there be a friendly greeting or an angry and aggressive greeting? Well, Mauritia, normally it will be entirely amicable. There won't be fights. Certainly that's what's happened with the Styx Pride meeting up again, except for the fact that it seems like, except for the fact that the males killed one of those Styx females, so that's very unusual. Yeah, I've definitely never seen any aggression with it, but it's also not that common. These breakaway pride situations that we have here with the Styx Pride, and then the Tsalala Pride, which broke into the Tsalala Pride, and of course it's now called the Mangan Pride further south of here, which is now 17 lions. That's not common, you know. In all my years of guiding full time, I never saw a pride break up. So it seems to be all the rage in the Sabi Sands at the moment. If you happen to be in a pride, then you break up into a number of breakaways. But there's no reason for there to be aggression. I did see a diker there, eyes shining, but we won't shine on them at enough of a disadvantage as it is. Sky is now turning from that beautiful pink to purple, and eventually it'll go inky black. And I don't think there'll be great stars tonight because there'll be quite a strong moon later on, and also there's lots of dust and smoke in the air. That's why we had such an incredible sunset. Some very nice little comments and updates there from John Q and Lisa, who said, Lisa, you said that it is autumn day in the UK, and John Q, you said it was meteorological fall in the northern hemisphere. So in Ohio, the 20th of September is possibly a little bit late for you to be starting your autumn. Cinny or Kinney. As Chris and Rita say, as we head towards the warmth of the summer, dung beetles and chameleons will be something that we're hopefully going to see mainly when the rain comes. They are currently under the ground eating their way out of their little dung balls where they have wintered and then pupated, and then they will come out. The lights on the horizon dry, splashing rain. I keep seeing the lights on the horizon there, the settlements on the western edge of the Kruger Park, thinking that they might be a bush baby sitting in a tree, but they aren't, obviously. I'm heading back towards where those tracks were of the lions early this morning, hoping that they won't perhaps pop out of the bush, on the off chance that they weren't. That's why they called the Big Five. It is a hunting term, and that is why I almost completely refuse to use the term. I use the term high-profile game, and that would include things like hippo and wild dog and cheetah and all the other iconic animals that Africa's famous for. And I suppose you could include the giraffe in that if you wanted to. So we'll head back across to Scott, see how the Birmingham boys are doing. They've had a very lazy day, and I don't think that they're having a particularly active night at this stage. But let's go across and see them, and I'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back. Sadly, no changes here. And it looks like Lynn may even be wrong with her predictions of them getting up 10 minutes before the end of drive. because at the moment it's not looking promising at all. But that could change quite quickly, and we very often get surprised by the animals, and hopefully this evening will be no different. And in their defense, they are moving huge distances at night, and they've been very, very busy over the last few weeks. And it is normal behavior for lions and most cats to sleep for 18 to 20 hours every day. So even when they do wake up tonight and do start moving, there's probably a strong chance that at some point in this evening they'll take a 2 or 3 hour doze, depending on what happens. I'm really interested to know where they're going to move from here. It's impossible to guess where. Will they head back south towards where the Matimba males are? Or will they head north away from us into Buffelshoek, where they have been spending a lot of time over the last few months? Time will tell, and sadly we may not be able to find out this information this evening, and it may be on the sun's safari tomorrow that we have to follow their massive prints, establish where they've gone. Hopefully tomorrow they won't take us on such a roundabout trip that they take us on today. But that is all part of the adventure, and if every drive was the same, it wouldn't be exciting. And even on this morning's drive, as a lot of time racing around looking for them, we did stop along the way and have some interesting sights of other animals. And it's often the efforts on tracking down the way, enjoy all the other beauty that does exist here. If you listen carefully, you'll be able to hear the African scops owl calling every not like that, but that's at least.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga. Sorry about that. Scott is in a very difficult area, and I think you probably heard VM playing the trumpet there, and I'm sorry about that too. He's quite a musical fellow, old VM, and he's clearly full of the joys of spring, and therefore trumpeting away merrily, oblivious to the fact that he was doing it to the world and not just to himself and me. So Scott is in a difficult area. He's in the same area where earlier we had to go black screen, and so I'm sorry about that. It just is an awkward part of the reserve. Well, Anne, you've asked the question, why do lion prides break away? And it's a good question, Anne. And Virginia, I think you've answered it perfectly well. You've said because they get too big to feed everybody, and I think that that's precisely what it is. I think that there's an enormous amount. Lion pride sizes tend to depend very strongly. There's no, completely 100% one dependent variable, but they do tend to depend quite strongly on predator numbers, at least on prey numbers and prey abundance. But also male upheavals in an area like the Sabi Sands is definitely having an effect. There's no shortage of prey here, and the fact that the Styx pride broke up into 3 groups of 2 doesn't make any sense to me, because, well, not from a prey abundance point of view. Hunting lions, they've shown in various parts that 2 lionesses are less efficient than 3 and less efficient than 1. So 2 lionesses in a pride is a really bad sort of number of lions to be in a pride. So I think that the fact that they've split up quite a lot in the Sabi Sands may well have to do with Perhaps it's got to do with prey, perhaps it's got to do with the size of the prey. So, I mean, the impala are the most abundant antelope here, and they were probably the largest number of kills that are made here are impala. And we don't see them all the time, of course, because they do get devoured quite quickly. And maybe that central area where the Styx Pride are, there just weren't enough big buffalo herds, and that's why they split up. So that's possible, Virginia and Anne. It's also possible that the upheavals with male lions all over the place are also creating a bit of an issue, and that's why some of the prides are breaking up. But I couldn't give you a definitive answer. I suspect it's got to do with both of those things. There's a scrub hare there that just leapt 4 feet into the air. I don't know why it did that, but it shot up like it had been shocked. Look at it running. Notice, Viam, not a bunny. It's not hopping, it is running. And that, of course, is the big difference between a bunny or a rabbit and a hare. But interestingly also, I mean, they have that rather, shall we say, less than humane sport, coursing, where you'd send a greyhound or something like that after a hare and bet on whether it would catch it or not. But it is interesting to watch how, if you ever do watch that, then what happens is that coursing motion of a dog chasing a hare is a wonderful analogy for how a cheetah and a wild dog catches their prey. They course very nicely. Right, we're going to try and nip across to Scott with the lions and see how his signal's doing. If it's not doing so well, I'm afraid you'll be back with me and possibly a scrub hare or two. But let's see how the lions are doing, and I'll see you just now.
A little bit better, which is great, and it's also giving you this wonderful view, which is a little bit different from what we've seen so far this afternoon. And it's going to be interesting to see how many more scratches and scars next few.
Hello, you're back again. Sorry about that. This time VM wasn't trumpeting away, so that's a good thing. We are nearly, well, maybe it is depending on your love of brass instruments. We are now, we've done pretty much 50% of the block where we thought those lion tracks disappeared into today, and nothing as yet. So it's all still rather a mystery as to what's going on. Daryl in London, while we drive around on this balmy, wonderful first of spring evening, you'd like to know what we're going to show you heading into summer. What other sort of different kinds of animals? Daryl, I don't think that the suite of animals is going to change, because nothing, of course, is hibernating. But Daryl, what we will see at night especially is more things like snakes hunting in the trees. Sometimes we get vine snakes and tree snakes, which is quite fun to see. And then chameleons, of course. And then will only increase in the cold-blooded animals. So things like, I suppose, chameleons and snakes. And would be the obvious ones. And of course, frogs. When the rain comes, we'll get frogs and toads, quite a lot of, and then there will be some birds that come in that we wouldn't see normally during the winter, something like a square-tailed nightjar, which we don't see during the winter time. But otherwise, same suite of animals, very different bush. Thanks for that, Daryl. There is an eye shining on the ground. That's a nightjar there. A nightjar just flew off the ground. Almost impossible to film, I'm afraid. So very entertaining for me and not necessarily for you. It's such a lovely warm evening. As opposed to a hot evening, which is what we'll have in summer quite a lot of. Tim, do you see any lions? No. Could you look harder, please?
You noticed the darkness?
Yes, I have noticed the darkness. I've also noticed your slightly sardonic wit. There is a duiker, which I'm not going to shine on for too long, disappearing into the darkness. I would quite like to see the Nkahuma Pride fairly soon, mainly because I want to see how young Junior is doing and to compare his size to those of the Birmingham boys. I suspect that as an offspring of the Timbers, he is actually going to be slightly larger than those Birmingham fellows. Sarah, on the subject of the Ninkahumas, you want to know, has anyone seen them? And the answer is, well, no, not for a while. I think that they're on Djuma. We saw them 2 days ago around here. Then they seemed to disappear into a block yesterday and we failed to find them. Then they seemed to, we don't know where they went from there. We didn't find their tracks this morning because we were out trying to find the Birmingham male lions. So I think, Sarah, that they're on Djuma somewhere. And hopefully tomorrow morning we'll be lucky and we'll find them. Thanks for that, Sarah, in Ohio, aged just 17 years. Always asked good questions. So, thank you everybody for your patience during our rather tough time with some of the signal issues today. It has been a fascinating day. There's so many questions about the lions and you've asked so many good ones about them, so thank you very much for your contributions on that front. Big thank you to Viam on the camera today, and a big thank you to Nikki and Tara, the old hands in the final control. We will see you tomorrow morning. I'm going to hand you back to Scott for a last look at those magnificent Birmingham boys, and I'll see you on the Dawn Safari. Thank you and good night.
What? And looked off to the east. Oh, nice big yawn. Another one. Just hard to say what it is that they did here, but they could well have heard either lion or possibly alarm calls. But obviously nothing too serious. And their hearing is much better than ours. So how far away it is that they did here. I was hoping it was going to induce them to roar.
Hello everybody. Your eyes do not deceive you. It is not in fact the dawn safari yet. It's still the night safari. You haven't lost an entire 8 hours or 9 or 10 hours of your life. I'm afraid the signal is just too appalling where Scott happens to be. I'm just going to turn off road here and we'll have a quick scan of the clearing. And what you'll notice, I'm going to scan gently across like that, and you'll just see the odd impala that is now lurking in the clearing. Ooh, sorry about that, Ben. So we'll answer a couple of questions and just hope that maybe we'll get those lions back before the end of the drive, but I'm afraid I don't think that's going to happen. And we are not very far from the Birmingham boys. They're over in that direction, probably about 1.5 kilometers as the crow flies. And then, Christy, you want to know how far they are from the Gari Dam. The Birmingham boys are, not far, probably about 800 meters on the road and about 300 meters or 400 meters as the crow flies. All right, everybody, I'm afraid that's it for the 1st of spring. Once again, a big thank you to you, and it does remain for me to now close for Scott and to say thank you very much to him and, of course, to Jean-Dre. And I look forward to seeing Jean-Dre again. He has lost his beard and is totally unrecognizable. So thank you again for your patience and thank you for your time. And I'm just going to let you enjoy the sounds of the wonderful 1st of spring for the next 10 seconds. We'll see you in the morning. Bye-bye and keep safe wherever you are in the world.